Okay, welcome back, everybody, to another list reaction. And this time I'm back to Rate Your Music. When I recorded a couple weeks ago the Rate Your Music progressive rock list, a lot of people had responded to it saying, hey, part of the reason why there's no progressive metal on this list, or at least a very small fraction of it, is because Rate Your Music has their own progressive metal list. So you should go check that out, because unfortunately there wasn't anything from, like, I think there was one Opeth entry, very little, if any, Dream Theater output on that. No Between the Buried and Me, or like anything. So here we are. It will be interesting to see what we've got. So some predictions in terms of bands and in terms of, like, I guess, albums as well. So hopefully we'll see some Opeth. I have a feeling we'll probably see some Tool on this as well, hopefully. It would be interesting to see if Arion makes the list as well. I'm not quite sure how much Rate Your Music likes Arion. People either love them or hate them. So obviously Dream Theater. I would love to see some Haken on here. Some Leprous as well would be really, really good to have on here. In terms of, like, historical things, Fate's Warning would be good to see. Queensryche for sure would be really good to see on here. But anyway, that's enough yammering on. You guys know the drill. Anything that I don't know, I'll probably skip and be like, yeah, I don't know them, so let's just continue on. And these first couple of ones I'm not familiar with. So yeah, unfortunately, don't know any of those or that. Arc I am familiar with, but I've never actually dove into Arc. Hammers of Misfortune, okay, that's a good one. Psychotic Waltz, no wonder they blocked the image for that one. I have a feeling there will probably be a few on here that have a blocked image. Tall Poppy Syndrome from Leprous, good to see them on here. This is a great album. I think this is considered their debut full-length album, because they have a handful of EPs that came out before this one. Great introduction to Leprous's work. Scared Blue, yeah, good introduction there. Good to see some Threshold on here. That's good. Okay. Arion's on here, Into the Electric Castle. That's great. I think this is the album that got most people into Arion, with a lot of, like, prominent figures like Fish from Marillion. But yeah, great concept album. The first one to really put him on his map after, what was it? Like fantasy, like realistic fantasy or actual fantasy or something along those lines. Anyway, Enslaved. Now, that one's very high at number 69. Nice. Zilto the Omniscient. I would have put this very easily in the top 5. Like, very, very easily. This is my favorite Devin Townsend record by far. It'll be interesting to see if we have more Devin Townsend on this after Ziltoid being here. Anachrysis. Not familiar with them, unfortunately. Not familiar. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one. The Cataphalic. Okay, sure. Okay, good to see some Fate's Warning. One of their better albums. Love this one, Parallels. I think most people would put this as, like, one of their better albums. Meshuggah. Again, good to see them on here. Interesting that it's nothing. I wonder if Obzen is going to be on here then. That will be very interesting. Duran Gray, great choice. Love, very avant-garde, very different, very heavy as well. Good to see them on here. ADHD from Riverside, my favorite Riverside project. It'll be interesting to see if Rapid Eye Movement and Second Life Syndrome are on here. Arguably their two best records. But yeah, ADHD is my favorite album from them. So punchy, so succinct in that sense. Another Fate's Warning, Disconnected. Not a big fan of this one, but I know that there's a fan base for sure for this one. Enslaved, yeah, that's a good one on here. I'm not familiar with this one though. Symphony X, The Odyssey. Now, I guess there's boobs on this one. I guess there's boobs on the cover of the Odyssey. Love this one. The title track, the ending piece on here is so good. I was so blessed to see them live this year, and they ended their concert with the Odyssey. So good. Great power metal in that sense. Edge of Sanity, Crimson 2. Okay, sure. That's okay. Sigh. Okay. I like some of the deeper cuts that we have on here. Not familiar with that one, unfortunately. Enslaved. Okay, okay. Leprous, though. This is my favorite record from Leprous. This would be like top 25. So it's interesting that it hasn't even like cut the top 50. But yeah, The Congregation. This was the album that got me into Leprous. So great to see that on here. Psychotic Waltz. Good to see them on here. Very chaotic stuff on Psychotic Waltz. Really, really like that. Blood Incantation, of course. Holy jeez. This was a fun, like, really heavy stuff. Like, we've got some really, really heavy stuff, but, you know, kind of following the Between the Buried and Me, very high concept space rock stuff. Really, really fun. Really fun. Love Blood Incantation. Orphaned Land, I'm not familiar with this one, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. Buckethead, hey, good to see him on here. Geez, yeah, he's got, like, almost an infinite amount of releases. Like, if you think King Gizzard puts out a lot of records, Buckethead puts out like 10 albums a year. So it's good to see something from Buckethead on here. Another one from Fate's Warning, one of their earlier, and this is one that I'm definitely more familiar with. This one and, oh shoot, the Guardian one. Well, this is Awaken the Guardian, but anyway, I'm sure it'll be on here. It's one of their bigger ones. Yeah, and now we're into the top 50. Let's see what we got on here. Wuthering Heights from the Shadow Cabinet. Oh, not familiar with that one. I should probably check that one out. Moon Tower. I'm not also that's another one I'm not familiar with, huh? Nevermore. Okay. Some good thrash metal. That's interesting. Seeing Images and Words at number 45. A lot of people would consider this one to be like the breakout album for progressive metal. So the fact that this is at number 45, like obviously there were, you know, albums that came before this one that could be considered progressive metal, like Fate's Warning, as I already mentioned, Queensryche. But I feel like this was the one that really put progressive metal on the map. So to see it at number 45, that's, I'm not sure how I feel about that. One of my favorite Symphony X albums, The Divine Wings of Tragedy. This was the first album from Symphony X that I got into, and man, this is the one that still gives back. Love this one. Yeah, and hey, it's my other favorite one, 5, the New Mythology Suite. Yeah, you can't get a better 1-2 punch than these two albums. I think between them, I think the Odyssey was in that one, or did the Odyssey follow? Anyway, getting ahead of myself. Great thrashy power metal on these two. If you want like some really good power metal, can't go wrong with Symphony X on this one. Really good. First of the Between the Buried and Me, arguably my favorite Between the Buried and Me, definitely the most proggy of all of their albums. Like in tracks themselves, like the title track being like 18, 19 minutes, and I love the individual tracks that follow or that precede it. Great album, great album. You can't go wrong with this one. And hey, the one that I think most people would put at their favorite. This is the one that precedes The Great Misdirect. This is Colors. Yeah, this has some of my favorite Between the Buried and Me tracks, like Ants of the Sky, The Son of The Son of Nowhere? And then, of course, White Walls. Beautiful. If you want like some really hard hitting metal, then you're going to be very surprised and very fulfilled with that one. Okay, it looks like we've got to go to page number 1, and before it loads, because I don't want to be spoiled too much. You gotta go all the way down to the bottom. But let's go here. Fate's Warning, A Pleasant Shade of Grey. Good to see that on here. A later album from them. But yeah, still great. Yeah, got some Enslaved. Good to see them on here. Some good black metal. Tool, 10,000 Days. Not my favorite of theirs. Probably my third favorite of theirs, if I'm being honest. But you still can't go wrong. You know, like some of their best work on here. And the first introduction from Opeth, Watershed. Yeah, this was actually the album that got me into Opeth. I saw it in HMV way back in the day, and it was available on vinyl. It was available on a record. Yeah, this was a very good treat. I got scared with the second track. I will be perfectly honest. The second track was a little much. But no, I thoroughly love this one. It has some of their best work. Absolutely. Bilateral from Leprous. Love this record. Love this record. Yeah, what is it? The second track? Love that one. It's so freaking good. I need to return to this one because I always find like the first two tracks I listen to, and then I kind of turn this album off after those guys. So I really do need to revisit this one because it is very, very good. Another Disillusion. Okay, good to see that one. Another interesting that Accelerated Evolution is above by quite a substantial margin. Ziltoid the Omniscient. Accelerated Evolution is fine, but I wouldn't even really put it as some of Devin's best work. It's definitely got some of his more accessible stuff, but interesting. I wonder if there will be more Devin Townsend on here. Voivod. Oh man, some great Canadian. Like this is some really heavy thrash metal. If you want some really crazy stuff, Voivod is your ticket. Like I said, very good Canadian stuff. French Canadian, I believe. Oh, good. I'm glad to see some Neo Obliviscaries, or I always call it Neo Obliviscaries, but it's Neo Obliviscaries. Oh boy, great album. Love these guys. They're like almost gothic, progressive metal. Love them. Okay. Some Nevermore on here. Some good thrashy stuff. Some Cynic. Love Cynic from Focus. Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, I love how like melodic these guys are, even though they're more technical. Yeah, great stuff in that sense. Good to see that on here. Enslave, I'm not as familiar with Enslave as I mentioned before, but okay. Written in Waters, interesting. I'm not familiar with this one either. Now, this one's interesting. This is one of my favorite Dream Theater albums, if not my favorite, to see Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, at number 27. Again, this is another one that I would put very easily in the top 10, if not top 5. I think this is one of their best records. So to see it at number 27, not even breaking the 25, it makes me very curious as to what we've got in store. First one from Mastodon, Blood Mountain. Not necessarily my favorite. I actually prefer Leviathan and Crack the Sky a little bit more, but good to see Blood Mountain on here. It's very heavy. Okay, Green Carnation. I'm not too familiar with them. Some French stuff with Gojira. Way of the Flesh. Yeah, great, like really heavy, really like almost doomy metal. Like it is heavy. Love Gojira. Really good on there. Another Nevermore. I should really check these guys out. They've been on here a number of times. Morning Rise from Opeth. Interesting that this one is above Watershed. I don't know if I necessarily agree, even though this one, I believe this is the one that has Black Rose Immortal on it. But I still love The Night in the Silent Water. Great tracks from this record. Okay, good to see some Pain of Salvation. This is probably my favorite record from them, because it was either this one or Remedy Lane. But yeah, The Perfect Element Part 1. Oh, and hey, speaking of Remedy Lane, there it is at number 20. Yeah, these are great records. If you're looking for more of like, I almost want to say like grunge metal in that sense. Like it's not quite as like big and verbose, but very heavy, very grungy in that sense. Like it feels very 90s metal. And yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Teria. Okay, Devin Townsend. Yep, this is one of my favorites from him. It's got Deep Peace. It has Canada. And I also believe it has Earth Day. Those 3 tracks just blow me away. I love those 3 tracks. Deep Peace, probably my favorite Devin Townsend track, if I'm being perfectly honest. Great stuff. Great stuff. Deliverance from Opeth, and it's so interesting because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Damnation that was on the progressive rock one. And again, this one has some of their better work. Love this one. Very heavy. Very heavy. Okay, one of my favorite Voivod records, Dimension Hatos. Great stuff, very thrashy, very technical. And my favorite one, Nothing Face. Love this record. It will bleed your face off. This was a great 1-2 punch if you think about it. You know, Dimensions Hatros and Nothing Face being like a 1-2 punch. Great stuff. Okay, Maudlin of the Well, Bath. This one was very interesting for me, and I don't know, I'm not as much of a fan of this one. I had to listen to it way back when, and it was fine. Just a little too noisy without meaning. Wasn't as big of a fan of this one, but it was still good. Okay, we got a Queensryche, probably their most popular record of Operation Mindcrime. You know, the big rock opera, the big concept album from them. Yeah, this was the one that really helped continue progressive metal in the 80s. And some people would say, like, hey, there it is. Yeah, the follow-up of Bath, Leaving Your Body Map. And I think I actually prefer this one more than Bath from Maudlin of the Well. Still good stuff, but yeah. Yeah, interesting that, because this is one of Devon's first records solo, but it is a Devon Townsend album of Ocean Machine. Interesting that they call it Biomech, but I guess on paper that's really what it was. And it's fine. You know, I'm not as much of a fan of this record as I know a lot of other people are. I'm not discrediting it by a long shot. It's still a beautiful, beautiful record. But I don't know. I feel like he's done better stuff. And that's just me. Like Funeral and Deadhead, like those are great, great tracks. But yeah. Okay, yeah, My Arms Your Hearse from Opeth. Great stuff on that one. Yeah, this was the one that kind of like solidified their Candlelit era, and then after this one we would get Still Life, and yeah, I still like this one. You know, like Demon of the Fall is a great, great track from this one. Love the whole concept behind it as well. Great stuff. Edge of Sanity, I've heard about these guys, but I've never actually like dove into. So I guess I probably should, you know? Oh, right, Atheist. Man, this one takes me back. I have not listened to this album in a hot minute. This is some really heavy stuff and a really good deep cut. Yeah, this is great. Some like it's got more of like a jazzy flair to it as well, which I really, really enjoy. But yeah, definitely some really intense stuff on Atheist. And one of my favorite Mastodon albums with Leviathan. Yep, can't go wrong with that. Maybe my favorite, Gordura from Mars to Sirius. Really been loving this one. This is the one that has whales on it. So, yeah, can't go wrong. Love that one. Love that one. And arguably my favorite, it's between this one and Hushed and Grim, their latest one that kind of goes back and forth of which one I like more. But this one's great. Crack the Sky. I mean, from start to finish, probably their most solid record. All tracks are bangers. Okay, we're into the top 5 now. We're into the top 5. So, Ghost Reveries, yeah, absolutely. Number 5, this one holds, you know, Ghost of Perdition. This one holds Bane of the Hounds, Harlequin Forest, and The Grand Conjuration. Ends with Isolation Years. Cannot get better than that. This is one of the most dynamic records that Opeth has ever done. Just absolutely a banger. Absolutely a banger. Okay, number 4. Death. Ooh, good to see some Death on here. Interesting, because I don't know if I necessarily consider Death to be a progressive metal band. Like, I can see the flavors of it on here, but I always kind of consider Death and, like, Sleep to be prog adjacent metal records rather than full-fledged stuff, but still, great, great stuff. Very heavy. Very, very heavy. Number 3, Still Life from Opeth. Can't say boo about that one. Face of Melinda on here. The Mire, I think, is also how this album opens up. And the concept is just like the story of Still Life is just so heart-wrenching. Serenity Painted Death, I think, is a little too cheesy. I'm not quite sure if it aged completely all that well. But overall, this album is just a banger from beginning to end. Number 2, Blackwater Park. Okay, lots of Opeth within the top 10 and within the top 5. I agree that I enjoy Blackwater Park a little bit more than Still Life. Still Life, I think, have individual songs that I love more than any of the individual songs from Blackwater Park, but Blackwater Park from beginning to end, I think, is a much better album. I mean, just look at the amount of progression that they have done as a band between these two. Bringing on Steven Wilson to help produce this album, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's find out what number 1 is. Number 1 is Lateralis from Tool. Okay, that is a good choice. Like, this is my favorite Tool album. It's probably in my top 10 favorite albums of all time, if I'm being perfectly honest as well. Yeah, the concept of this album, or I guess loose concept of this album, Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It has my favorite Tool tracks like Parable and Parabola, the final three big pumping tracks that flow right into one another. Schism on here, The Grudge, like all the tracks on here are unbelievable bangers. And I think that this is also a prog metal album that like almost anybody can get into. Like, there's something on this album that almost everybody will like. Like, it's not unbelievably heavy like some of the albums that we have listed down below are, but they're also not like lethargic. You know, like there's a lot of meat and potatoes to this album. So yeah, I can't argue with that. I think that's a great number one. So some wrap up thoughts. Interesting that there was only one Arion album. I'm surprised the Human Equation wasn't on here. Human Equation is probably my favorite record from Arion. Surprised that wasn't on here. It's got some really standout performances, some from some really standout bands. Excuse me. Shocked to see no Haken on this list when Leprous had 2 or 3 records. I don't know. Yeah, Congregation was on here, Bilateralis was on here, and Tall Poppy Syndrome was on here. Interesting that there wasn't a whole lot of really. I'm thinking of like Protest the Hero wasn't on here as well, and I would consider Protest the Hero to be like really good progressive metal in a different flavor, you know. So surprised to see none of them on here. And I mean, we're kind of dealing with a little bit of semantics, but because Mastodon was on here, I was surprised that Baroness or let's see here, even Deaf Heaven wasn't on here, because both of those, like if Mastodon is on here, I'm surprised that those two weren't on here either. But yeah, I was surprised that Dune, D-U-N-E or D-V-N-E, because they have their whole Songs from Arrakis. Great stuff on here, and I'm kind of saddened that I didn't hear anything from them on here as well. Let me see, anything else that I was saddened. I mean, I think the biggest one is still not seeing any Haken, because I think Haken was a huge player within the progressive metal scene within the 2010s. And I'm also shocked that Native Construct wasn't on here with their Quiet World. I think most people can admit that was like one of the best ones on here. But really glad to see that Riverside was on here. Again, I'm kind of shocked that Second Life Syndrome or Rapid Eye Movement wasn't on this list. But glad to see that ADHD was on here. You know, definitely great. So yeah, I mean, overall, this was a pretty good list, and there were a handful of records that I wasn't as familiar with. I think out of all these lists, this one was one that I knew the most from the group on here. So yeah, and it's always kind of like a weird kind of sticking point. Interesting now that I'm thinking about it, that there were only 2 Dream Theater records, Images and Words and Scenes from a Memory. You know, I'm surprised that 6 Degrees wasn't on here, or even Awake. You know, I can understand why some of my favorite ones like Systematic Chaos, or Black Clouds and Silver Linings wasn't necessarily on here, or even Train of Thought. But yeah. So anyway, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this list reaction. I hope you guys have been having a good time out there. What are some other lists that you would love me to cover? Let me know about that by commenting down below, because I'm always on the lookout for new lists, new things to react to, because I've been having a blast doing these on every Friday, and I think you guys have as well. I can talk. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoying this. Let me know of another list that you want me to check out or to react to. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.